So I want to show you what it's like to write on the new iPad Pros. So this is with an Apple Pencil 2nd generation, and this was going to be basically for any iPad Pro that was released in 2018 or 2020 that uses this Apple Pencil 2nd generation. And I want to compare that to writing on the iPad Pro from 2017 using the 1st generation Apple Pencil. And then I'm going to compare that to writing on a piece of paper with one of my favorite pens ever, the Pilot Precise V5's Extra Fine. So we're going to go ahead and do a writing comparison test. But before we start, I just want to preface this with saying that the iPads I'm using are iPad Pros, which means they have something called ProMotion technology. So ProMotion technology is just Apple's marketing term for saying it has 120 hertz refresh rate or 120 hertz display, which basically reduces the latency when you're writing with the Apple Pencil. So this is not going to really be applicable for iPad Airs or the budget iPads, which don't have that ProMotion technology, because those have, I believe, 60 hertz displays. They definitely don't have 120 hertz displays. So the latency is a little bit more noticeable, and I don't really enjoy writing with those at all because it's noticeable for me. But for a lot of people, maybe it won't be noticeable. So it's really going to have to depend on if you can actually perceive that difference in the iPad you're using. I think most people can't really notice a difference. I'm kind of picky and I can notice a difference. So just only apply this to iPad Pros and not any other iPad. Just take that into account as we do this test. But aside from that, we're also going to talk about how it feels to write without a screen protector. So this iPad, I just unboxed it. I don't have a screen protector on it yet. The iPad Pro 10.5 inch I'm going to show you guys does have a screen protector, and then we'll compare that to the regular piece of paper. So let's just go ahead and open this up. So we're using my favorite note-taking app, Notability, and I'm just gonna go ahead and select my favorite preset. So I use this second one, pressure sensitivity off, and we'll just use black ink on lined paper. And yeah, let me just start writing. So I'm gonna have to angle it a little bit to get around the camera, and I'll just write, this is an iPad Pro. Okay, so I wrote a little bit more just to get a better feel of how that's going to look. So I'll zoom in on this so you can see the text and judge for yourself how my handwriting changes. Basically, a few things to point out. So this is still pretty slippery without a screen protector to write on, which means that you do have to lift your pen or your pencil more frequently to prevent your letters from connecting with each other. Now, if you like writing with your letters all connected with each other, then I think this is a perfect writing experience as is. I personally like to keep my letters pretty separate from each other, which is why that I always found the slipperiness that you get with this rubber tip on this glass to be a little bit annoying. There's not enough friction, and that's why I usually use like a matte screen protector, or you can use Paperlike or something like that to kind of resolve that. And another thing that I want to mention about this is that for some reason, maybe I'm just used to writing on tablets now, but I felt this to be a little bit less slippery though than when I used to write it with the 1st generation Apple Pencil without a screen protector. So I don't know if they changed the tip a little bit. It feels pretty similar. It could just be that this tip is newer and that the tip on my older Apple Pencil is a little bit worn, but it does feel slippery, but it doesn't feel as slippery as it used to. I used to write. So that was interesting. Now I'm going to usually write, when I'm trying to write neat, I usually write in all caps. So I'm just going to write the sentence again in all caps to see what that looks like too. Okay, so I ended up writing a different sentence. I forgot that I was supposed to repeat that sentence. But yeah, it still felt a little bit slippery. And something that I'm just noticing with this bigger iPad is that usually when I write neater is when I'm writing smaller. So if I write smaller, then I usually write neater. And this iPad is so big, I feel like I have to write a little bit larger, which I think is making my handwriting a little bit messier. So this is a 12.9 inch iPad. I'm used to the 10.5 inch iPad, so that could be playing a role too. So it's going to be interesting to see how I have to navigate my writing technique now when I'm trying to take really good looking notes. But overall, I think it's a fine writing experience without a screen protector. Latency is barely noticeable, which is incredible. It feels so fluid and so smooth. It's really close to writing on paper in terms of when the text appears after you're done writing. I think the latency is down to 9 milliseconds on these iPads, which is absolutely insane. So it's a fantastic writing experience for sure. But if you don't have the screen protector, it might feel a little bit slippery. So let's move on to the old iPad that I have, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, which does have a screen protector, and let's compare it to that. So we'll move this one out of the way, and we'll bring this one into the picture. And the first generation Apple Pencil. So there really shouldn't be a difference in the latency between these two Apple Pencils as long as the iPad you're using is an iPad Pro. If it's not the iPad Pro, then you will notice a difference in latency, but it's nothing to do with the pencil itself, it's to do with the iPad you're using. So the hardware in the pencils should be more or less exactly the same. One thing I do want to point out is that this pencil though, it has this button on the side that if you double press here, it switches between the eraser and the pen, which is really convenient, but I'm finding myself, at least initially right now, accidentally pressing this when I'm like putting the pen in my hand, and then it switches to the eraser by the time I start to write, which is a little bit annoying. So I might turn that feature off if that's possible. I haven't looked into it enough, but I'm sure you can turn that double press off. Now, this first generation Apple Pencil doesn't have any sort of button or pressure area where you can touch. It's just simply a pencil. It has a removable cap so you can charge it, but that's about it. So let's try writing on here. Okay, so even now, like my handwriting isn't as neat as I would like it to be when I'm taking notes, but you know, I'm at an awkward angle and I'm not like as close to it and I'm not trying as hard either. So I'm taking all those factors into consideration. But maybe you could hear when I was writing, there's definitely more tooth when you put a screen protector. So you have to put a matte screen protector or use a paper-like screen protector in order to get that friction that you will feel when you're writing on a real piece of paper. And it definitely allows for more tooth, more control over your writing. And I think this looks a little bit better than what I wrote there. Maybe not necessarily that much different, but it feels a lot better to write on this sort of screen protector. Now the colors, you know, this matte screen protector and most matte screen protectors will dull the screen of your iPad a little bit, which is a bit of a bummer, but apparently the Paperlike version 2 doesn't do that so much. It retains the color accuracy. If I do get that, I'll let you guys know if that's actually true or not. But let's just take a quick look between these two writing examples that I have. And I'd say, you know, looking at them, they look more or less pretty similar. I think there's a little bit more squiggle, it looks a little bit more scribbly in the one without the screen protector. You can tell here, I had a little bit more trouble staying on the line too because it was a little bit more slippery. Whereas in this case, I think I had a little bit better time staying on the lines itself. I think it looks a little bit neater. I think my letters are a little bit more disconnected from each other, which is something I enjoy. My G's don't look great on either one, but you know, that's just, I guess, how I write G's. I spelled again wrong up here too, which is kind of embarrassing. There we go. But you know, so overall, maybe you are not too worried about the difference in the handwriting between these two experiences, but I will tell you that this one definitely feels way better because of the screen protector, right? Not because of it's the first generation Apple Pencil, it's because of the screen protector. In terms of latency, they're both phenomenal. I couldn't really tell that much. Well, I will have to admit, there did seem to be, you know, and this could just be like my mind playing games on me. There did seem to be a little bit of a delay with the older one than the newer one. Again, this could totally just be all in my head and completely made up. I may not even really be able to perceive this, you know, physically. It may not even be possible for me to perceive a difference. But it felt just like, you know, the slightest bit laggier, if that's a word, than the new one. So, you know, do with that information what you will. I just thought I would mention it. Okay, so let's bring in the actual pen and paper, so obviously the actual pen and paper will probably give you the best writing experience, but you know, the fact that you can do digital note-taking, I think the benefits of digital note-taking are far superior, especially when you get the writing experience so close to actually writing on paper. I think digital note-taking definitely prevails. So again, this is a Pilot E5, so 0.5 millimeter thickness, one of my favorite pens. The spaces are a little bit larger on here, so I'll try to write smaller. So I don't know if you could tell when I was writing, but the amount of control you have with a pen and paper, especially for using such a fine point pen like I am, that amount of control you have is just really hard to replicate, I think, completely with digital note-taking. So if we take a look at what I wrote here, and we kind of analyze this, you know, the letters are clearly more separated. I didn't have a trouble staying on any of the lines at all. I think overall the handwriting looks a little bit neater too. than the other two examples. I obviously was writing a little bit smaller because it's a fine point pen, so when I'm writing on it, I'm just used to writing a little bit smaller. And I think that the main issue with digital note-taking, at least for me, is that even if you change the thickness of your pen through the software, the actual tip of the pencil itself is fixed, right? And it's a little bit thicker than I like. So that makes it a little bit difficult to write as neat or get the same amount of control as you could with this. Now, what the Surface Pro lines did was they introduced interchangeable tips onto their pens. And I've been hoping for years, for like 2 or 3 years now, that Apple would do something similar with their Apple Pencils, and they still might. And I think that if they were to offer an interchangeable tip with even thinner or finer point, that would really enhance the writing experience for sure. So let's just quickly bring all three together and see if we can kind of compare them one last time before we wrap this up. So I don't know if this can all fit in the frame at the same time, but we'll try our best. Might have to stack some of these on top of each other like that. And then the notebook can come here. Okay, so again, the good thing about digital note-taking is that you can really manipulate things to exactly how you want them. So you can zoom in, zoom out, change your pressure sensitivity, your points, your thickness, the lines that you're writing with. You have a lot more flexibility in that sense. But if you're not doing it with a screen protector, it's gonna feel like you're a little bit out of control when you are taking notes. For artists, I don't know. I feel like maybe for artists, you want there to be that fluidity, so like you can paint. It feels like a paintbrush almost when you're using it, and so maybe you won't want a matte screen protector, and then you might even get color distortion too with that. So maybe you don't want a matte screen protector if you're an artist. But for note takers and students, really, because I'm a student, so I'm looking at this from a note takers, like a student's note taking perspective. You definitely want a screen protector for sure, whether that's Paperlike or some other matte screen protector. I think that's definitely useful. So we can see that, I had difficulty staying on the line. My letters weren't as separated as I would have liked. Like, when I'm putting the line over the T, I lost a little bit of control, so it's kind of harder to put the horizontal line on the T. And it's a little bit curvier, I think, my handwriting in general without the screen protector. Now, with the screen protector, I think that it definitely seems like I had more control. I stayed on the lines. The letters are more separated than you can see here. And I didn't have, trouble putting the line over the T here. And I don't think I had trouble putting it anywhere else either. So it's definitely a lot more controllable, and it feels a lot more better. You have more tooth when you're writing, so you have that friction, and your pen is not like slipping out of your hand when you're writing. But of course, the best one for sure, I think, is still the pen and paper, especially if you have a certain pen that you're really into. If you use a fine point pen, with a rollerball pen, maybe you're not going to get the same sort of handwriting quality. And by a rollerball pen, I mean one like a cheap, regular, just like a Bic pen or something like that. It's not going to look like this. It's not going to be as fine. It's not as good quality. But if you're using like a pretty decent quality pen, then you can really get, I think, the best handwriting. You can see how separated my letters really are. And I was really able to get a lot of control in keeping them thin and small. And I didn't miss a single thing over the T in any of these words. So I think I did a pretty decent job with this one. Not to compliment my own handwriting too much, but this isn't like super neat handwriting, but this is still, I think, pretty good based on what I was doing quickly. And another thing, that is another point I wanted to bring up, is that I was able to write this, I think, a lot more comfortably and a lot quicker than with these two options. So I had to be a little bit more delicate when I was writing on these two, on the digital devices, because you do lose a little bit of that control with the finer point and such. But when writing on actual pen and paper, I was able to do that, a little bit more naturally and a little bit more comfortably, and I was able to do it quicker as well. So this is the comparison between the different note-taking devices or tools that you can use. And, if you honestly don't notice the difference between any of these, then I think digital note-taking is absolutely for you. If you are going to go into digital note-taking, which I still recommend for everyone anyway, because digital note-taking, the advantages are just so much better than taking notes on paper. But if you do decide to go the digital note-taking route, I definitely do suggest a matte screen protector. It doesn't have to be paper-like, just some sort of matte screen protector to give you a little bit more friction when you're writing, and I think that'll help you a lot if you're taking a lot of notes. If you're not taking a lot of notes, maybe it doesn't really matter, and if you don't really care if your notes are messy or not, then you don't have to worry about that type of screen protector. Pick whichever screen protector you want if you want one. But if you are taking handwriting notes and you want to make sure that you have a lot of control when you're writing and make it feel like paper, a matte screen protector is definitely the way to go. Now, people always ask, is it going to wear down your Apple Pencil tip if you use a matte screen protector? And people who have used Paperlike apparently claim that the Paperlike does not wear down your Apple Pencil tip. I think that's nonsense. I mean, you're putting a screen protector on your iPad, it's going to wear it down a little bit. Just writing on it is going to wear down your tip too, right? And if you have something that has more friction, of course it's going to wear down your Apple Pencil tip. And I can't substantiate the claims about the Paperlike not wearing down your Apple Pencil tip, but the screen protector I did wear it down a little bit. And it wasn't a huge deal. I think, it took about like maybe a year and a half before I really felt like, I need to switch out the tip. So I did switch out the tip on this Apple Pencil, and I think that helped a lot. And it doesn't feel worn out now. So now it's been like maybe half a year since I've switched the tip out. So like 6 months, and it still feels pretty good. So it won't necessarily wear it out like immediately. But with time, of course, if you're writing on something that's a little bit rougher, it's going to wear down the tip a little bit quicker. And the fact is that you can get these tips online, and they're not too expensive. The new Apple Pencil, I don't think, came with a replacement tip, which is kind of unfortunate. But the first generation Apple Pencil does come with a replacement tip. At least it did when I bought it. So I don't know if they changed it now in 2020, but I'm assuming they didn't. So if you buy the Apple Pencil, the first generation one, it comes with a replacement tip. So it's not a huge deal if, your Apple Pencil tip wears down a little bit because of the screen protector. And I think the benefit of having a really great writing experience outweighs the potential wearing down of your tip. But I'm just saying, I don't think just because you get a Paperlike, that's not going to happen. I don't think that's true. I think a Paperlike will also wear down your tip. That doesn't really make sense to me why a Paperlike wouldn't. But, I don't have any evidence to back that up personally. I'm just saying, I don't think that makes any sense. So if you do have evidence to support that Paperlike doesn't wear down your tip, let me know. This video has gone on for quite a while now, so hopefully this gave you some insight into the writing experiences. This was really fun. A ton of more iPad videos are going to be coming out, hopefully in the near future. Let me know if you enjoyed this content, and I will see you in the next one.